Not everything in history made it into your school textbooks. Some stories were too strange, some were forgotten, and some were never fully confirmed. From military battles against birds to emperors attacked by bunnies, the past is weirder, darker, and more fascinating than you think. Welcome to random historical facts that you may or may not know. Australia's war against emus. In 1932, the Australian government waged a military operation against emus. These giant flightless birds had overrun farmlands in Western Australia, destroying crops. Veterans of World War I, now struggling farmers, begged the government for help. The solution? Soldiers with Lewis machine guns. In theory, it made sense. In practice, not so much. The emus were fast, unpredictable, and almost comically effective at dodging gunfire. One soldier later said the birds could take multiple bullets and still escape. The military only managed to kill a few hundred emus out of 20,000. The operation was called off. The emus remained. The headlines were ruthless. It remains quite possibly the only war in which trained soldiers lost to a flock of birds. An aircraft carrier made of ice. During World War II, British engineers proposed something so odd it sounds like a Bond villain's daydream. An aircraft carrier made of ice. Named Project Habakkuk, the plan aimed to build a floating fortress in the Atlantic using a material called pykrete, a mix of ice and wood pulp. Why? Because steel was scarce and ice could theoretically absorb torpedo damage. Better yet, pykrete didn't melt easily and was strong enough to support heavy aircraft. A prototype was built in a Canadian lake. It impressed everyone. Strong, floatable, and long-lasting in cold conditions. But logistical challenges, costs, and advancing technology made it obsolete before it launched. Still, for a brief moment, the Allies considered defending the seas with a man-made iceberg the size of a city block. Storage tank explosion in Boston, January 15, 1919. A storage tank holding over 2 million gallons of molasses exploded in the north end of Boston. The resulting wave, thick, dark, and deadly, reached 25 feet high, moving at 35 miles per hour. It swept through the streets like lava. Horses were knocked off their feet and suffocated. Buildings were crushed. A firehouse collapsed. 21 people died, and over 150 were injured. It took weeks to clean the syrup off streets and months to deal with the aftermath. The sticky residue clung to buildings and clothing long after. And for decades, Bostonians claimed that on hot days, you could still smell molasses in the air. Nikola Tesla and signals from space. While experimenting with wireless electricity in 1899, Nikola Tesla picked up rhythmic signals he believed came from intelligent life. He was convinced he was receiving interplanetary communication, possibly from Mars. Tesla wasn't known for exaggeration. This was the man who envisioned smartphones in the 19th century. Later theories suggest he may have picked up early cosmic radio waves, perhaps from Jupiter. But Tesla's conviction never wavered. He wrote, "My first observations positively terrified me." Whether misunderstood physics or actual alien contact, Tesla's signals remain one of the most mysterious chapters of his genius life. Poe's future prediction. In 1838, Poe wrote the narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym, where stranded sailors draw straws, and a man named Richard Parker is cannibalized. Nearly 50 years later, a yacht called the Mignonette sank off the coast of Africa. The survivors, they drew lots. And the one they ate was also named Richard Parker. The details were eerily similar. Both stories involved starvation, lifeboats, and the grim decision to survive by consuming the youngest crewman. It's one of literature's strangest coincidences, and the real case became a legal landmark that still shapes maritime law. Did Poe accidentally predict the future? Or did life imitate art in the darkest possible way? I guess we'll never know. The secret behind Roman structures. The Pantheon, the Colosseum. Roman structures have stood for over 2,000 years. Modern buildings crumble in decades. Their secret? A mix of volcanic ash, lime, and seawater that causes crystal growth within the concrete. The longer Roman concrete sits, the stronger it gets. Some of it literally repairs itself. Scientists today are racing to decode these ancient recipes. Ironically, the future of sustainable construction may lie not in innovation, but in rediscovering what Rome already knew. The Missing Mother. Paris, 1889. A mother and daughter check into a hotel. The mother falls ill. The daughter leaves to get help. When she returns, her mother and their room are gone. Hotel staff insists the woman arrived alone. The guest book is changed. The room is now occupied by strangers. The daughter is dismissed as hysterical. She's sent away, heartbroken and confused. Some believe it was a cover-up. Perhaps the mother died of plague and the hotel suppressed it. Others say the entire story is fiction. It remains one of the oldest urban legends in travel lore, and a chilling story of gaslighting before the term even existed. Britain versus Zanzibar. In 1896, after a disputed succession in Zanzibar, Britain issued an ultimatum. The local sultan refused. The British launched an assault at 9:02 a.m. By 9:40, the palace had collapsed and the sultan had fled. The war was over in 38 minutes. Over 500 Zanzibaris were killed or wounded. The British suffered only one injury. In terms of length, it holds the Guinness World Record. A reminder that some wars aren't long, drawn-out affairs. Sometimes they're just devastatingly quick. Galileo's blindness. Galileo spent countless nights staring into the sky, sketching the phases of Venus, the moons of Jupiter, and sunspots. He stared at the sun often, using crude filters or none at all. Eventually, he went blind. Some say it was natural degeneration. Others argue it was the sun that took his sight. Even as his world darkened, Galileo kept working, dictating observations and letters. His legacy lives on in every observatory and science textbook. The stars took his sight, but in return they made him immortal. Creation of Tetris. For the last fact, this one's a bit more recent. This happened in the 1970s, more than 40 years ago. Let that sink in. Anyways, in the early 1970s, a Soviet engineer named Alexei Pajitnov created a simple but addictive puzzle game while working at the Soviet Academy of Sciences. That game was called Tetris, and it would become one of the most iconic pieces of software in history. But here's the twist. Pajitnov wasn't a commercial game developer. He was technically a government employee. That meant the Soviet Union owned Tetris, not him. When the game leaked to the West, it sparked a legal and political firestorm. American companies scrambled to license it, but the Soviets, through an obscure agency called ELORG, tried to keep control. Some even suspected the Soviets allowed the spread of Tetris deliberately as a soft power tool during the Cold War. While there's no proof of that, the game did end up inside millions of American homes during a time when Soviet propaganda couldn't. In a way, Tetris became the USSR's most successful export, long after its creator had lost control and nearly his job. Okay, bye.